This is Nathalie Tirado, and this is my story. Well, I was born in Ponce, Puerto Rico, La Ciudad Señorial. I was born in Dr. Pila Hospital on January 14th of 1994 at 12:54 p.m. And I know that because it's on a pillow that my father still has. Oh, Natalie from childhood, she was a little twister. She was always I was a very hyperactive child, and so I spent and I think it has to do a lot with being surrounded by a lot of family members and cousins. So I spent my childhood in Ponce. At the time, my mom had bought a house in Rincon, Puerto Rico, which is on the west coast. So for about 2 years, a year and a half or 2 years, we were traveling very often from Rincon to Ponce, just for me to go to school and see my family. And my mom had a job in Mayagüez, which is a town really close, about 15 to 20 minutes to Rincon. But Natalie from childhood, she was super hyper, happy, always singing, dancing, drawing, very artistic. I arrived to Chicago on May 18th of 2006, and I believe, if I recall correctly, our flight landed between 8 and 9 p.m. at night. And I think, it has to be at that time because May in Chicago, we get dark late around that time. So at that time, it was barely getting dark. I was feeling lost. Because the decision to move to Chicago happened overnight. One week I was playing with my cousins and with my friends. I was in school. No, I was out of school already. And then in less than 2 weeks, it was like, let's pack up our stuff. We're moving to Chicago. And so I was lost because I didn't understand what that meant. I didn't understand that would mean not seeing my family every other weekend, or my cousins every week, my friends every week, or every day. We moved to Chicago because of the economic crisis that Puerto Rico has been facing for many decades now. All I can remember in deep details is that my mom, she worked for a nonprofit organization, educational system, and she was working at the time in Carolina, Puerto Rico, in Apney, I believe. And in May 16th, I believe, was her last day. She was laid off. As a single mother, you have to improvise. I'm not a mother, but I could only understand. She had to figure out options. And why did we move? It was not just a financial need. It was more of a stability need, because at the time, I was a special ed student. At the age of 4, I was diagnosed with sensory neural hearing loss, and I lost all my hearing on my right ear by the age of 6. So, when she lost her job, it was a matter of how can I afford my daughter's needs, her hearing aid, because hearing aids are considered cosmetic, a luxury with the insurance. So she had to make a decision. It was very interesting. It was interesting because when I got here, it was already kind of summertime, so I just waited until September. That was already weird for me because we did not start school in September in Puerto Rico. We started earlier. So I had extended summer vacations. And then when we went, it was a assimilation shock, a culture shock. Because I started noticing how everything here is divided by a category. So the first culture shock that I had is that Los blanquitos hang out on this side, the Mexican hang out on this side in the lunchroom. There was no instructions for me on how to speak the language. Um, when I was growing up in Puerto Rico, I was, for the most part of my life, in bilingual school because I did not have a speech problem, but the way that I was speaking, it was easier in English than Spanish at the time, perceptively. So that was already an issue. Um, lunch lunch break was extremely hard for me because in Puerto Rico, uh, at least in my school, we got an hour lunch break and you could literally leave the school and come back. Here you couldn't do that. You had to spend your whole hour in the lunchroom. High school was high school was a period that I don't miss. High school was hard. High school was when I faced depression in a real way. I in high school I lost one of my closest cousins in Puerto Rico. He was shot 10 times on the back and one in the head. And when I heard about that, my dad called me that same morning, and I think that was like the cherry on top of the cake. Because I was like, okay, I can't be there for my family, and I'm really starting to feel lonely now. I was dealing with my sexuality. You know, my cousins knew, at least my cousin Michael and my cousin Paola. They knew and they were always very supporting, but it's different when you have family embracing you and friends embracing you physically and giving you words of encouragement. Whereas in high school, it was more of the second you say anything, you will be judged. It was another label on top of me. You know, I was learning how to speak English. I was learning how to write it. I was learning how to just be successful in high school and get better grades. And I was dealing with the baggage that I came from, you know, that I brought with me from Puerto Rico. I almost saw my mother. My mother is a victim of domestic violence. So it was always, how do we continue protecting ourselves here in Chicago? So when I lost my cousin, it was the tipping point. And I just couldn't embrace the good things that I had. You know, I was in a good school, I was getting a good education. I was ahead. I was ahead of my peers in Puerto Rico, and I've always been a competitive person. But it wasn't just about being ahead, it was about understanding how all of this was going to affect me as an adult. So till this day, I struggle with how I coped with a lot of it. You know, my mother has always been supportive, but my mom was dealing with her own baggage. And, you know, I'm not putting this on her because this is on me, but I could talk to other people. But high school was challenging. It was lonely. And I started doing a lot of not so great behaviors. I started dating different people. I just told my mom about this recently, but I used to smoke a lot in high school as a coping mechanism. I used to do things that were not healthy for me. And high school is just a period where I don't want to remember it again. I think the hardest moment of my life during that period was understanding where my mother was sheltering me from. my mom was not sheltering me in a way that it was don't tell your sexuality. My mom was just protecting me from society. Like, before you define who you are, understand what are society conceptions about things. But during high school, I started understanding that I was dealing with an alcoholic father. And that was really, 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 really tough on me, because I started understanding why my father left me in parks until 2-3 o'clock in the morning on the weekend that I was supposed to be with him. And I always kept that to myself. I wouldn't tell my mom about it until one day I just had it, and I told my mom, because I was mad, I was angry at my father. But it was understanding my father's alcoholism, understanding society's homophobia. I avoided going to jail thanks to my mom, because at the time I was dating a girl who was 16 years old, and I had just turned 18. I did not know that her mom was putting a case together for me, against me. So things like that were hard. And I think what shocked me the most out of that specific period of my life and made it hard is that I didn't have my family with me. I didn't have my grandma with me. It's different. It's completely different when you can go to your grandmother's house to talk about what's affecting you. When I told my grandmother I was gay, she just laughed. She's like, girl, I knew. And so I have my mom and I have my sister. I don't think there's anything that my mom doesn't know about me. But during that time, aside from my mom, I knew I could count on my grandmother and my godmother. And not because I couldn't count on my mom, it's that she had so much baggage already that I was trying to, I guess, protect her from dealing with more garbage. Like, I just didn't want to put that on her. But it is what it is. My relationship with my grandma is a beautiful one. I miss that woman every day. I just recently taught her how to FaceTime me, and now she won't stop FaceTiming me. But my relationship with my grandma is beautiful. She has taught me how to be free spirit. She has taught me how to live authentically. And at some point, my mom had always been a very free spirit person. And she gets that from my grandma. Like, it's just, you know, before my sister was born, my sister and I are 10 years apart. And we have a saying, we are the Three Musketeers. But before my sister was born, we were still the Three Musketeers. My mom, my grandma, and I. So I got to live a part of my mom's adulthood with her. She was in her 30s, and whenever my mom wanted to go to the beach, we went, and my grandma just went along with it. My grandma gave me my first beer and my first margarita. She was like, if you're gonna do any of this, you're gonna do it with me first, because you're not gonna be the dumbass out there making a fool out of yourself. But my relationship with my grandma is beautiful. When I told her that I was getting married to a woman, I remember I was in the airport coming from Florida, and I told her, I called her, I was like, hey, I'm getting married. You know, Cassandra proposed to me. And she started yelling on the phone of happiness. And she said, is this what you want? And for a moment, I stopped. And I couldn't stop crying because I always believed that life hits you with everything in one way or the other. And I feel that I had to face all the bad before I was blessed with the good. And I started crying when she asked me that, because I've never been so sure and so confident and so happy and so, I don't know, I felt embraced. Like, this is what I want. And I started crying because it was just, yes, this is what I want. But nobody ever had asked me, is this what you want? And that's a question that I always ask myself every day, in every decision that I make. Is this something that Nathalie wants? And being the first time that she asked me that, that's what made me cry. It wasn't even about the decision. I already knew I was gonna marry Cassandra the moment I met her, but it was just being asked that. My relationship with my dad is, I have a father, but I don't have a dad. I just got married and he refuses to accept my sexuality. And the day before I got married, I told him that I was getting ready to pick up what was I picking up? I think it was the dresses for the bridesmaids, something like that. And he said that I was gonna regret my decision. And I was so angry when he said that I just hung up. So the next day I was like, you know what? This is my life. He's gonna learn how to respect it. You know, when I first told him that I was with Cassandra about 5 years ago, he wished me dead. He called me a whore. He called me an abomination, not a child of God. He said a lot of remarks to me that were hurtful, and to this day, it's been hard to heal from it. I've been 2 years into therapy just because, first of all, I want to take care of my own trauma. But second, because I don't understand how my father, who has a gay brother, cannot accept his only child. I'm his only child. And for me, that has been the most hurtful thing in this process. So the day of my wedding, I sent him a picture of my dress, me and my dress. And he never responded. I changed my phone, not the phone number, but I changed my phone like 2 days after, the day after, and I lost his number. And during that time, I was mad because he never reached out to me and I lost his number. Until recently, he sent me a picture of a pig that he loves Cuero. So I assumed that it was because of that, and I called him. And the first thing he said was that you look beautiful in your wedding dress, but I don't want to know anything else. It's been a month since I got married, and it's been the happiest moment of my life. But when I think about my father, I'm having a hard time. I'm having a hard time because I was daddy's little girl, and I can celebrate this with him, and it hurts because I promised him that if I could teach him how to love me as who I am, he could be around his grandchildren. But the way that he's been, he's not going to be a part of my life. You know, and I have forgiven him, but I'm not going to apologize for who I am. This is me. You know, I'm beautiful in my own ways, and I'm not going to apologize for that. The happiest moment of my life, getting married. You know, it's funny because when I met Cassandra, when she walked into the library, I knew I was in trouble, and I knew that I had to take a leap of faith. That was one of them. You know, when I first saw her suit and getting ready to get married to me, it was super one of my favorite memories. And the other favorite memory of me is when my sister came home when she was born. I used to annoy the hell out of my mom to please give me a sibling, and she wouldn't budge for it. She just wouldn't. And then one day she's like, I'm gonna have a kid. You're gonna have a sister. That's what she told me. And then Eveluna came into the picture. And so she made me the big sister, and I'm so proud of her. So proud of her. A smell. Sand and lavender. Sand because home. Lavender because industrial life is really busy and stressful. And when I smell it, I'm able to retreat back, gather myself together, and keep going. Of fear, nuns. I was expelled from a Catholic school because I slapped a nun on her face. Only because I was a happy child. I got on top of the table and I started dancing to Ricky Martin, Living La Vida Loca. She told me to not dance. I slapped her. I asked my father if I got expelled. He said yes. I asked my mother if I got expelled. She said no, I took you out because you were a troublemaker. I don't know the truth, but we're gonna go with that. I was expelled because that's what the rest of my family tells me. A dream. You know, at first I dreamt of having this big mansion, of having my own boat, the car of my dream, which is a Camaro SS7, 1967. But anyways, but now my dream is to keep living a healthy life, to live as long as I can see my own grandchildren, especially with this COVID pandemic. Like this, that's a dream, to just be healthy and be able to help others. A song. Azúcar, Celia Cruz. A place. La playa. La playa. The first thing that comes to mind. A memory. almost getting run over by a car because I was dancing to Shakira, Ciega Sorda Muda. And I guess I got too excited and I started trolling until I got into the middle of the road and I almost got ran over by a car. And my grandmother just laughs. And it was a fear laugh. You know, some people you get really shocked and you laugh out of fear and scare. Mi patria. Un hotel. Un hotel con estadía extendida.